Larry Madowo on the other side of the studio with a panel to look at what the political landscape means after two very important polls came out this week. Larry.
All right, and we discussed both of those polls at the top of this broadcast, the Infotrak poll and the Jesuit Hakimani Central poll. I'm now sitting with Angela Ambitho, who you saw in that story, CEO of Infotrak. Thank you for coming back on NTV. We've got also, you saw him in there, the story, Dr. Elias Mokua of the Jesuit Hakimani Center, Executive Director there, and Dr. Richard Bosire with the Political Science Department at the University of Nairobi. Thank you all for coming in. It's a contrast between your two polls because yours says NASA is popular. However, it shows a Jubilee popularity, but his poll says that people don't think the issues are covered, which is an interesting thing between they're still engaged with the political process, but they don't think these leaders that they think are popular will be addressing their issues. That's the contrast that's surprising for me, and I'll start with you, Dr. Mokua.
Well, first of all, we have to say that part of our electorate has become like spectators. We love drama, we love spectacle, we love to chase, we want to see who's winning, who is losing. So, but at the end of the day, we don't hear a lot of discussion about issues. Do we have an agenda like health that's really dominating the political discourse? Do we have an agenda like agriculture or security that's really dominating this campaign? So yes, the polls, the figures, percentages that were released could be true in a sense of popularity. But popularity and the issues are not exactly correlated, so to speak.
But isn't that interesting, Angela? Because the people you poll are very passionate, especially politics inflames a lot of people's passions. And if I'm an Uhuru supporter, I support Uhuru very strongly. The same for Raila, for Mudavadi, etc.
Larry, I don't remember when politics in Kenya was ever issue-driven. So maybe this will be the first one, but it has always been driven by tribe. So is your man going to be in power? And the promises of goodies. You know, that people actually even take time to synthesize and understand manifestos is something that is yet to happen in this country.
So what is driving this popularity of the Jubilee Party and the Jubilee Alliance?
I think it's really that these are people who feel very close to the leaders of the Jubilee Party. So there's that emotional connection with the leadership. We can't ignore the fact that in the last 6 months, 8 months, there's been a lot of dangling of carrots, roads, you know, promises of infrastructure that the opposition side doesn't have the wherewithal to do. They're not in government, so they can't promise those goodies. They can't go to, you know, a certain county and say this road is going to be carpeted. And in the short run, those are things that become top of mind and get to the hearts and emotions of people.
Dr. Bosire, we've just been reporting today about defections in Taita Taveta, the senator and the woman representative defecting to Jubilee. Is that part of the reason perhaps why it appears to be more popular in her poll? Because there's things happening, there's exciting movements.
I would say, Raleigh, that defections don't actually indicate that people on the ground have shifted their alliance. We have seen defections in this country, and where when they are checked using a by-election, then you see the reality that those who are moving for their own reasons. But just like Angela said, it's not about an issue, it's not about anything. Some people are in this politics purely for their selfish interests, and they would like to woo their people thereafter to follow them. It's not the other way around. The politics should have been, my people want this, that is what I articulate.
But isn't that what the politicians always say, that I'm moving to this party because my people have told me this is the party they feel best represents their interests?
The saying is different from the reality. For example, we have seen recently where we have had by-elections where, for example, I will give you an example of some parts of Kisii where we had by-elections recently. I could say recently, a few months, quite a number of months ago. And there was a feeling initially, politicians were saying, we have defected with our people. Then they could not capture an MCA's position, and you could see clearly that these fellows did not have support of the people. But that is the nature of our politics in this country. You want to say you are really popular, but you don't also want to delve into the issues and let the people support you on the basis of issues, as my brother was saying here.
This political season is going to be very famous for manifestos. Every party is going to do a huge manifesto launch. It's going to be a glamorous affair. But your study says only 9%, 9.7% think manifestos are documents that can be used to track performance of political leadership.
To be honest, I think that's even on the higher side. There are very few people. I have to say this study, first of all, is real for the educated. So the representation is more for the educated. So if you generalize, including, with all due respect, Wanjiko, then this research will not be totally valid. We're talking about people who are informed, people who can read. Even the questionnaire was substantially complex. So there are very few people who really understand the manifesto of their political party. You know, they have read the document. Unless you are going to make a presentation in some forum, it's very highly unlikely that you are going to read a manifesto, then ask, I don't know, my party, have you done this? Have you allocated money? And that's why we're really talking about this election issueification. Yeah, what's the priority? What are we handling? What's the big issue that should really drive us? Why should I choose X and not Y? Because, yeah, you know, but where is it?
I've seen some criticism of your poll today, Angela, about the sample size being too small. 1,500 against a population, let's say even registered voters, nearly 19 million. People say it's too small to be representative of the feelings of the public.
The sample is actually representative enough, Larry, and I've given you this example before, although America may not be the right example to give at this point in time.
Right.
But if you recall, because this is the last election that we've seen, and they were quite close when they looked at the popularity of the candidates, maybe missed it on, you know, the electoral, you know, issues, but the electoral college, but what we normally look at is what the margin of error is, and we stipulated that when a sample is 1,500 representing 19 million people, the margin of error is slightly under 3%.
What is the margin of error in this one?
This one is, that's what I'm saying. This is slightly under 3%. It's about 2.995%, which is slightly under 3%, which is acceptable in social research. I think what tends to happen normally is that those in the know, because the people who criticize are actually in the know, do this to, you know, lay doubts in the minds of Kenyans, especially when it's touching a nerve. And right now, this particular poll we know is touching a, you know, a nerve. It's
touching a nerve, but also pollsters haven't got the best reputation after they missed Brexit and they missed Donald Trump. So globally, yes, pollsters have gotten a bad reputation for saying things that do not represent what eventually ends up happening.
Yes.
And therefore, people are talking about 2013 and late 2012, and the polls pointed to a Raila Odinga presidency, and that didn't happen.
Have you lost your memory? We said that it was too close to call, and it was too close to call, and either candidate would have won that election. Now, if you recall the numbers right now, there are people who say they don't know who won that election because 2 million people actually only voted for a president and nothing else.
And didn't vote for any of the other candidates.
So I wouldn't even use 2013.
Let's talk Donald Trump and Brexit, because that's become a popular example.
Donald Trump and Brexit. If we look at the UK polls, predominantly use samples that are bought. They buy samples. So Larry can be a provider of samples, and that is what you specialize in. So I will come to you as a pollster and I buy your samples, and then I will use those samples predominantly using internet. Now, internet polls, even when we try and do them here, have very low response rates. People don't respond. So what tends to happen, therefore, is that you introduce such high biases. So in the Brexit one, what they did say in themselves, because they were using internet, but they were also using landlines, that then left out the youth.
Okay.
When you look at the US, it's more or less the same thing. Who did they miss out on? They missed out on the Rust Belt.
Okay.
The farmers don't have mobile phones. They wouldn't respond to internet polls.
Fair enough. But you understand, Dr. Bosire, there may be disillusionment among a lot of people with pollsters, especially in this country when they don't say what you want them to say. People, politicians, ordinary citizens alike tend to dismiss them.
Yeah, but the reason why, I think in our country, we have a problem. Because if someone doesn't reflect you as the winner in a poll, they will discredit the poll. I remember in 2013, there were criticisms of the pollsters in the country. Someone, who I will not mention the name, a politician said, I'm studying statistics at the level of masters, but I was not sampled, and therefore, who is this? Who gave this information? That tells you how we do not often consider the technical aspects. I agree with Angela. 1,500 can be used to generalize in the United States for 300 million people.
So you have no issue
Kenyans,
with this sample size?
I have no issue with sample size. What I will perhaps would have had an issue with is how was it drawn.
Okay.
But the number is not an issue. But our mentality is that a politician says must win. Always reflect him as someone who is going to win. Otherwise, they will demonize the pollster.
Okay. Dr. Mokua, one of the issues that's coming up a lot this political season, people have been talking about voter apathy. And I wonder if your poll is related to that, where people don't think the issues are represented, therefore have they given up, or what's happening?
Yeah, that's actually more than voter apathy. We talk about moral apathy.
And what is that?
Moral apathy is a situation where, for example, if you are driving and the guy just overlaps, goes ahead of you, and no one says anything. You know, no one is people are not going to jump out of their cars and say, what are you doing? We're supposed to have some order. We are in a society where moral bearing is slowly, we're losing our direction. So the sense of the common good is not there. The public, what we call public interest, is kind of disappearing. What does that give us? It gives us a kind of survivalist society, where if you get an opportunity, you amass, you know, because you don't know next whether you'll be there or not.
Okay.
So in that case, then people will vote if they feel like either you have given me something or give me a considerable reason to wake up and go and vote you.
All
so
right.
In that case, then it's more than just voter apathy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to jump in real quick?
Yeah, I mean, voter apathy is there, and it arises when people feel that they don't make a difference in an election. For example, people will not want to go to vote today because they think, having voted the government in 2013, their lives have not changed. So they think that their vote does not really make any sense. There are so many Kenyans who feel that way. When you think about issues to do with really the basic needs, people struggling in an economy where they cannot meet their basic needs. Also, there are those who see that because our elections have been challenged in the past with the violence, sometimes elections have been challenged with cheating or stealing of the votes, and they think their votes do not count.
All right.
That actually contributes to the apathy. Let me just say one more
really,
thing.
really quickly,
Yeah,
because I want to get in something the president said this week before we go.
Employment. People thought employment would come by after 2013. You can see figures when Mokua's figures tell you that people are feeling that employment has not been addressed.
So they don't feel like what they were promised has happened.
Then how do they go out there and vote?
Okay.
They don't make, it doesn't make a difference. That's what they feel.
Your poll was conducted before President Kenyatta in Turkana. But I wonder what the effect of this statement he made at the Turkana's meeting with where Governor Nanok was also might have affected what you're saying and what all of you are saying. I want to play that sound first, and then we'll come back real quick to talk about it. Because President Kenyatta all but said that it does not matter whether we come here and ask for votes. If you give us, life will go on. And I wonder what kind of effect that might have had if your poll might have been conducted after that. Do you think it would have had any impact?
First of all, Turkana is not a stronghold. So he was saying this because I think he got emotional.
Hang on, leave that moment. I can play that sound for you right now. Go for it.
Kwa kufikiria mimi ni mtu ya kutishwa, watafute mwingine. Kura ni kura na tutakuja kuomba kama wengine. Mtupatie, mkose kutupatia. Kwani mnafikiria dunia itaisha? Wacha story mingi hapa bana. Dunia itaendelea. Au ni namna gani? Si ni hivyo? Na ndipo tuwasema kwa viongozi tuheshimiane jameni.
Turkana is not his stronghold, but is that damaging because the rest of the country sees that?
The rest of the country sees that. What you will note is that with loyalists, sometimes this works to a candidate's advantage as opposed to his disadvantage.
Right.
Where it may actually hurt him is with those sitting on the fence, the people who haven't decided, who perhaps were looking for a compromise, someone who's mature, someone who thinks through what they're saying. And if they feel that this is not concomitant with those emotions that they were looking for or qualities they were looking for, then that will change. But I think it was an outburst. We've seen outbursts in other countries. We're seeing it now with Donald Trump. It hardly ever changes his support with his loyalists.
Dr. Mokua, do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. Actually, there's something called symbolic power.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a leader from your community, it gives you a sense of victory, triumph. You know, you are on top of everyone else. You are the leaders. You are the ones in charge. It's only symbolic, just like Manchester United or Arsenal winning. What does it do to your life?
So
when
you two agree that this does not affect Uhuru Kenyatta's standing within his supporters?
It doesn't.
It does not radically alter his support base.
No,
Dr. Bosire, are you on the same page?
I thought, in terms of our integrity, we have a constitution. My thinking is that with our constitution, we expect our leaders also to carry themselves with some integrity, with some moral, some modicum of moral leadership in the country.
And you don't think this exemplified that?
I don't think so, because again, as leaders, there are issues that we should sort out in the boardroom before we get into the public.
Even if he didn't have that integrity, but is it damaging to his support base?
It might not damage his support base, which is not actually in any event in the place where he was talking in the first place.
I have to leave it there. Thank you all so much for coming in. Angela Ambitho, Dr. Elias Mokua, and Dr. Richard Bosire, you've been useful in helping us make sense of this political season. And I think in the 5 months that's left to the election season, we're going to be having a lot more of these conversations right here on NTV. I have to take a really quick break. Vicky and I are back after this.